Okay, so now we're going to look at the topic operating online, and the first section on that is things to consider when selecting an ISP or an internet service provider. The first one is the cost. Internet service providers charge a monthly fee, and there may even be a setup cost. The second factor to consider is the bandwidth, and this varies widely. Usually the higher the bandwidth, the higher the fee you have to pay. The figure that's normally advertised is a maximum, which is rarely reached. So just be careful of this, and it could be because of other network traffic. The next factor to consider when selecting an ISP is download limits. Some internet service providers will impose a limit on how many downloads or what you download a month, and if you go over this, they will charge you extra. The next feature that you need to consider when selecting your ISP is email and web space. Many internet service providers will give you email addresses and provide space on their servers for you to create your own website. The next factor is security. Broadband always-on connections are vulnerable to hackers, so the internet service provider should provide you with a firewall, antivirus and anti-spam software. Some internet service providers also provide parental controls. And the final feature to consider is reliability and support. Some ISPs never provide the bandwidth they promise and may have poor customer care. So you need to check what support can be available should you need it. So these are the factors to consider when selecting an ISP. Okay, so now you've considered your internet service provider, you've decided who you're going to go with, you're now looking at how you can communicate on the internet. So the first way is through VoIP, or Voice over Internet Protocol. You need a fast internet connection to do this. An example of Voice over Internet Protocol is using Skype. The second way you can communicate is through instant messaging. Through instant messaging, you are talking in real time by typing messages. It can help collaboration. Remember that instant messaging isn't free because you have to pay for your internet connection. So if in the exam you're asked about benefits, don't put it's free. The next way that you can communicate is through email. You can send and receive messages, and you can access this on multiple devices such as a laptop, mobile phone, tablets and so on. Next way you can communicate is through online albums. You can use a photo album that's hosted on a website, and it allows you to share and back up photographs. The next way is through social networking, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, using websites such as Facebook. And here you can chat, you can send instant messages, email groups and file sharing. Again, remember social networking isn't free. A benefit might be that you can message more than one person, you can see if they're online, you can see if they are typing a message. The final way of communicating online is through blogs. A blog is a shared online diary, and you can post and share experiences. Twitter is an example of a microblog because you can only post 140 characters. So they're the main ways that you can communicate on the internet. We've considered personal use of the internet. We're now going to look at business use on the internet and how they can use it for communication. And the first way is through cloud computing. And cloud computing is storing software and data centrally so it can be accessed anywhere. The advantages of cloud computing is a business wouldn't need to buy multiple software licenses. A disadvantage is there are possible security issues with data stored by a third party. So that's cloud computing. Okay, the second way a business uses the internet to communicate is through email, voice over internet protocol and instant messaging. and all of these are different ways of communicating over the internet. The advantage of using these are it aids collaboration. The disadvantage, however, is there is a possibility of over-reliance with people using email for inappropriate reasons, or people could get bombarded with emails that aren't relevant to them. The final way a business might use the internet is through video conferencing. Video conferencing is two-way audio and video transmission. So if, for example, you have business premises in the UK and another of the same business in the USA, you can use video conferencing. So an advantage is it reduces the need for travel, so it lowers costs for the business. The disadvantage is people don't communicate as well as when face to face, because they might see the video camera as being a bit of a barrier. The next topic is learning on the internet, and in the exam you need to think beyond your learning, but also think about maybe learning when you're a little bit older, and people in general. How can you learn using the internet? And the first way is relevant to you, and some of you will use this. It's using a virtual learning environment such as Frog. The advantage is students can access tasks and resources that are uploaded by teachers, and they can track progress. A disadvantage is you cannot access if you do not have an internet connection, or if, for example, the internet is down, then you can't access the VLE. Another way of learning on the internet is through using user-generated websites, otherwise known as wikis. An advantage of this is it has up-to-date information which draws on lots of people's knowledge and expertise. A disadvantage is that anyone can add content, so the information may be inaccurate or biased. So again, in the exam, if you're asked about wikis and a disadvantage, remember it's because anyone can add to it, the information may be inaccurate or biased. The next way of learning on the internet is through using email, instant messaging, or voice over internet protocol. The advantage is it's got improved, quicker communication. The disadvantage, just like we looked at a minute ago with the business, is there's possible over-reliance or overuse. The final way of learning on the internet is through using news websites, and here you can use RSS feeds to see the latest stories. So remember, with RSS feeds you can select the topic of interest for you. So if you're interested in sport, you can select to have an RSS feed just for sports stories. You can search archives to find old stories. However, a disadvantage is a possible over-reliance on news websites rather than using a number of sources for research. So these are all of the different ways of learning on the internet. Okay, so now you're up and running, you're using the internet, whether you're personal use, whether it's business use, but you need to be aware of the security measures that websites use that are available on the internet. So the first one is usernames and passwords. So whenever you buy goods online or you've got an account such as social networking, you have to use a username and password to log onto your account. This is to authenticate who you are, and it's to prove your identity. The second way is challenge response through security questions, and these are often when you set up an account, you're asked to enter a question and you enter your own secret answer. You need to make sure it's a question or an answer that only you are likely to know. And the final way is a CAPTCHA test, and with a CAPTCHA test you have to enter the letters and numbers shown. And the purpose of a CAPTCHA test is it is checking that the form's being completed by a human and not a bot or a web robot.